The harsh purple lights of the slave market cast deep shadows across Nova's face as she huddled in the corner of her cage. 5 years had passed since the Blue Star Empire had conquered her homeworld, and each day felt longer than the last. Her once vibrant silver scales had dulled to a lifeless gray, matching the emptiness in her golden eyes. Around her, the massive trading complex on Station X-249 bustled with activity. Wealthy alien merchants haggled over prices, their translators creating a cacophony of electronic chirps and beeps that echoed off the metal walls. Nova had learned to tune out their voices, just as she had learned to ignore the ache in her wings, clipped and bound to prevent escape. She was one of the last surviving members of the Stellar Wings, a species known throughout the galaxy for their natural ability to navigate space using their bioluminescent wings. This same gift had made them targets. The Empire needed navigators for their expansion, and they took what they wanted by force. A shadow fell across Nova's cage. She didn't look up, having learned that eye contact often led to punishment. Heavy footsteps approached, different from the usual clicking and scraping of alien boots. These were solid, purposeful. This one, a deep voice said in Universal Standard. There was something odd about the accent, something Nova had never heard before. The slave master, a bulbous creature named Grek, slithered forward. "Ah, the human has excellent taste. This specimen is one of our finest, though, somewhat resistant to conditioning. Perhaps something more compliant would suit your needs better?" Nova's heart skipped a beat. A human? She had heard stories about them, whispered among the slaves. Their homeworld, Earth, stood alone against the Empire's expansion. Some called them primitive, others savage, but a few spoke of their unexpected kindness. She risked a glance upward. The human was tall, with broad shoulders and dark skin that seemed to absorb the harsh market lights. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw something she had almost forgotten existed: compassion. "No," the human said firmly. "This one." Grek's appendages writhed with barely concealed greed. "As you wish, but the price." "Name it." The human's voice carried steel beneath its calm surface. What followed was a rapid exchange of credits and documents, all handled through the station's automated systems. Nova remained still, trying to suppress the tiny spark of hope that had begun to flicker in her chest. She had seen too many slaves purchased with false promises of freedom, only to face worse conditions than before. The force field of her cage disappeared with a soft hum. The human stepped forward, holding out a hand rather than using the standard control rod to force compliance. Nova stared at the offered hand, confusion replacing her usual fear. "My name is Marcus," he said softly, his voice meant for her alone. "And I promise you, this is the last day you'll ever spend in chains." Nova's throat felt tight, years of conditioning warring with desperate hope. Her hand trembled as she reached out, expecting pain or tricks. Instead, his warm fingers gently closed around hers, helping her to her feet with unexpected care. For the first time in 5 years, Nova stood straight, her wings, though bound, twitching with an echo of their old strength. She didn't know if she could trust this human's words, but as he guided her away from the market's purple gloom toward the station's main concourse, she allowed herself to feel something she had thought long dead. Hope. The corridors of Station X-249 seemed different as Nova walked beside Marcus. The same cold metal walls surrounded them, but for the first time in years, she wasn't being dragged or pushed. Her bare feet made soft padding sounds against the floor, a sharp contrast to Marcus's heavy boots. They passed other slaves and their masters, drawing curious and sometimes hostile glances. Nova instinctively tried to shrink into herself, but Marcus moved slightly to shield her from their stares. The simple gesture made her chest tighten with an unfamiliar feeling. "We're heading to my ship," Marcus explained in a low voice. "It's not much, but it's home. And it's safe." Nova wanted to respond, but years of punishment for speaking without permission had left their mark. Instead, she nodded, her bound wings twitching with nervous energy. The docking bay they entered was smaller than the main ones, tucked away in a quieter section of the station. Marcus's ship sat in berth C-17, and Nova felt her breath catch at the sight. It wasn't the sleek, threatening design of Empire vessels, but something altogether different. The ship was sturdy-looking, with smooth lines and warm, copper-colored plating that seemed to glow under the bay lights. "The Morning Star," Marcus said with obvious pride. "She's an Earth-built merchant vessel, modified for deep space runs." As they approached the ship's entry ramp, Nova noticed something that made her stumble. There was no slave entrance, no separate containment area where property was supposed to be stored. Marcus steadied her with a gentle hand on her elbow. "Easy there," he said. "I know it's a lot to take in." The ship's interior was just as surprising as its exterior. Warm lighting, comfortable-looking seats, and most shocking of all, windows. Slaves were never allowed to see space during transport. Marcus led her to what appeared to be the ship's small medical bay. Clean instruments lay neatly arranged on a side table, and a comfortable-looking examination chair sat in the center. Nova's muscles tensed. Medical bays in her experience meant pain, testing pain thresholds, implanting control devices, or worse. "I know you have no reason to trust me," Marcus said, reading her fear. "But those wing bindings must be hurting you. I'd like to remove them, if you'll let me." Nova's eyes widened. Remove the bindings? It had to be a trick. The Empire had made it clear, her wings would remain bound until death. Yet Marcus waited patiently, making no move to force her. Slowly, Nova turned her back to him, every instinct screaming in protest. She heard him pick up an instrument and fought the urge to bolt. Then came a sensation she hadn't felt in years, gentle fingers examining the cruel metal clasps that held her wings. "These are barbaric," Marcus muttered, anger coloring his voice. "But I can get them off. It might sting a bit when the pressure releases. Ready?" Nova nodded, bracing herself. There was a series of soft clicks, followed by a sharp pain that made her gasp. Then, suddenly, gloriously, freedom. Her wings unfurled of their own accord, stretching to their full span for the first time in 5 years. The bioluminescent patterns along their surface flickered weakly, like a light coming back on after a long power outage. "Beautiful," Marcus whispered, then quickly stepped back to give her space. Nova's legs trembled as new sensations overwhelmed her. The air circulating through her feathers, the ability to feel the subtle vibrations in the ship's atmosphere, it was almost too much. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she flexed her wings carefully, each movement a rediscovery of something she'd thought lost forever. "Why?" she asked, her voice rough from disuse. It was the first word she'd spoken in months. Marcus's eyes softened. "Because no one deserves to be enslaved. Because my people know what it means to fight against those who would take our freedom." He paused, then added more quietly, "And because when I saw you in that cage, I couldn't bear to leave you there." Nova's wings trembled, their patterns glowing a bit brighter. She didn't understand this human, this impossible person who treated her like a person. But as the last of the binding's pain faded, she realized something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She wanted to. The first few hours aboard the Morning Star passed in a blur of new experiences for Nova. Marcus showed her to a private cabin, an actual room, not a cell, with a real bed and its own cleaning unit. The thought of having her own space after years of cages left her overwhelmed. "Get some rest," Marcus had said. "We'll break station orbit in about 6 hours. There are clean clothes in the storage unit, and the cleaning facility is through that door. Everything here is yours to use." Now, Nova stood under the warm water of the cleaning unit, watching years of grime wash away. Her wings, still weak but free, stretched out behind her, their patterns glowing stronger as her body remembered what it meant to be clean, to be treated with dignity. A soft chime echoed through her cabin. Nova? Marcus's voice came through the communication system. When you're ready, there's food in the galley. No rush. Food. Not nutrient paste or slave rations, but real food. Nova's stomach clenched at the thought. She finished cleaning quickly, finding simple but comfortable clothes in the storage unit. They were clearly human-made but modified to accommodate her wings. The ship's galley was easy to find, warm light spilling into the corridor from its open doorway. Nova paused at the threshold, old habits making her wait for permission to enter. Marcus looked up from where he was setting out dishes on a small table. "Come in," he said with a gentle smile. "I hope you like soup. It's my mother's recipe, chicken noodle. An Earth comfort food." Nova entered cautiously, her wings folding close to her body. The smell coming from the bowls made her mouth water. She stood uncertainly by the table until Marcus pulled out a chair, one specially designed with a gap for her wings. "You thought of everything," she said softly, sitting down. Marcus took his own seat across from her. "I've been planning this for a while, actually. The rescue, I mean. Not you specifically, but..." He ran a hand through his hair. "The Empire's slave trade has to be fought. Every person freed is a victory." Nova lifted the spoon, trying to remember proper eating etiquette from her life before slavery. The first taste of soup brought tears to her eyes. It was warm, flavorful, nothing like the tasteless nutrition paste she'd survived on for years. "Thank you," she whispered, wings trembling with emotion. "You don't need to thank me for treating you like a person," Marcus replied firmly. "That's the bare minimum you deserve." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, until Nova gathered her courage to ask the question that had been burning in her mind. "What happens now?" Marcus set down his spoon. "That depends on you. I can take you anywhere you want to go, a free colony, Earth, or..." He hesitated. "There's a growing community of freed stellar wings on a planet called Haven. It's under Earth's protection." Nova's heart raced. "Others of my kind? Free?" "Yes. About 30 so far, all rescued from Empire slavery. They're rebuilding, keeping your culture alive. But," Marcus added quickly, "it's just one option. You don't have to decide anything right now." A sudden shudder ran through the ship. Nova's wings flared instinctively, their patterns flashing in alarm. "It's okay," Marcus assured her, though he was already standing. That felt like... The ship's AI cut in with an urgent tone. "Warning. Empire patrol vessel detected. They are requesting our registry and cargo manifest." Nova's world seemed to freeze. Her wings pulled tight against her back, air washing through her in an icy wave. The Empire would take her back, punish her, make an example of her. "Nova." Marcus's voice cut through her panic. He knelt beside her chair, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Listen to me. I will not let them take you. Do you understand? I would die before letting them put you back in chains." The fierce protection in his voice made her patterns pulse with a new color, one she hadn't shown in years. Hope, mixed with something deeper, something that made her reach out and grasp his hand. "I trust you," she said, and realized she meant it. The Empire patrol vessel loomed in the morning star's viewscreen, its sharp, crystalline edges glowing with an ominous blue light. Nova stood beside Marcus in the cockpit, her wings tight against her back as she watched him work the controls with steady hands. "They're scanning us," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the danger. "Standard procedure would be to send our manifest and continue on course." He glanced at Nova. "But they might detect your biosignature. What do we do?" Nova asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Marcus's fingers flew over the control panel. "We run. The Morning Star isn't just a merchant vessel, she's got a few surprises. A grim smile crossed his face. Courtesy of Earth's resistance engineering. The patrol ship's commander appeared on the communication screen, his scaled face twisted in a sneer. Merchant vessel Morning Star, this is Imperial Command Ship Righteous Fist. Our scans detect an unregistered stellar wings biosignature. Prepare for boarding and inspection. Instead of responding, Marcus hit a series of controls. The Morning Star's engines roared to life with unexpected power. The ship shot forward, leaving the patrol vessel momentarily stunned. Hold on to something. Marcus called out as alarms blared through the ship. Nova gripped a support rail, her wings flaring for balance as the ship accelerated. The patrol vessel recovered quickly, plasma bolts streaking past their viewport. The Morning Star shuddered under near misses, but Marcus's piloting kept them just ahead of the deadly fire. They're not trying to disable us, Nova realized, her navigation instincts coming alive. They want to destroy us. Breaking their property is better than letting it escape. We're not their property, Marcus growled, executing a tight turn that made the ship's frame groan. And we're not dying today. Nova, I need your help. Your people can navigate space itself. Can you sense any disturbances we could use? Natural phenomena, gravity wells, anything? Nova hesitated only for a moment before spreading her wings wide. The bioluminescent patterns began to pulse as she reached out with senses that had been suppressed for years. The space around them came alive in her mind, currents, eddies, and... There, she gasped. 3 degrees port, about 20,000 kilometers. There's a spatial fold, a wrinkle in space-time. Small, but... Perfect, Marcus said, understanding immediately. He adjusted their course, even as another volley of plasma fire rocked the ship. They'll be afraid to follow us too close to a spatial anomaly. Their crystalline hulls are sensitive to space-time distortions. The Empire ship fired again, this time catching the Morning Star's port side. Damage alerts screamed through the cockpit as Marcus fought to maintain control. We're not going to make it, Nova whispered, watching the patrol ship closing in. Marcus, if they catch us, run. Don't let them take you too. Marcus reached out with one hand, catching hers while still piloting with the other. We're both making it, he said firmly. I need you to trust me one more time. When I say now, push your wings forward and brace for acceleration. Channel everything you have into reading that spatial fold. Nova nodded, squeezing his hand before letting go. Her wings began to glow brighter, filling the cockpit with silvery light as she connected fully with the space around them. The patrol ship fired again, but Marcus was ready. The Morning Star rolled, presenting its reinforced belly to absorb the hit. They were almost to the spatial fold. Nova could feel its energy pulling at her feathers. Now! Marcus shouted. Nova thrust her wings forward, crying out as she pushed her senses to their limit. The spatial fold bloomed in her awareness, its currents and eddies becoming clear as daylight. 10 degrees starboard, she called. There's a current, if we hit it just right. Marcus didn't hesitate. The Morning Star turned sharply, its engines screaming as he pushed them beyond their limits. Nova's wings blazed like stars as she guided them, her voice joining the ship's thunder as she called out adjustments. The patrol ship fired one last desperate volley, but it was too late. The Morning Star hit the spatial current at exactly the right angle, and reality seemed to bend around them. Nova's last sight before the fold engulfed them was the Empire ship turning away, unable to follow. Then everything went white, and Nova felt Marcus's arm wrap around her waist as the universe twisted inside out. The Morning Star drifted in the quiet darkness of unfamiliar space. Emergency lights cast a soft red glow through the cockpit where Nova lay curled in Marcus's arms, her wings wrapped around them both like a glowing cocoon. Neither had moved since they emerged from the spatial fold, both needing the reassurance of contact after their narrow escape. "You're trembling," Marcus said softly, his hand gentle on her wing. "I didn't think I could do that anymore," Nova whispered. "The navigation, the spatial sensing, they tried so hard to break that part of me." Her patterns flickered with remembered pain. But it was still there, just waiting. Marcus shifted slightly, keeping one arm around her while checking the ship's systems with his free hand. "The Empire couldn't break your spirit, Nova. They could chain it, hide it, but never destroy it." The ship's AI came back online with a gentle hum. Damage assessment complete. Port side hull breach contained. Main engines at 62% capacity. Life support stable. Current location, unknown. Nova stirred at that, her wings spreading slightly as she reached out with her spatial sense. The stars around them felt different, the currents and eddies of space following unfamiliar patterns. "We're far from Empire space," she said with certainty. "The fold through us. I'm not sure how far, but it's beyond their normal patrol routes." "Good," Marcus said, though she felt him tense. "That gives us time to make repairs." The Morning Star took quite a beating back there. Nova pulled back slightly, looking at him with concern. "You risked everything. Your ship, your life, why? Just for one slave?" Marcus met her gaze, his dark eyes intense. "Because every life has value. Because what the Empire does is wrong. Because..." He paused, seeming to struggle with words for the first time since she'd met him. "Because from the moment I saw you in that cage, I couldn't imagine walking away." Nova's patterns shifted, displaying colors she hadn't shown in years, deep purples and blues that spoke of emotions her people rarely shared with outsiders. "When they first took me," she said quietly, "they tried to make me navigate for their ships. I refused. They hurt me, starved me, but I wouldn't help them expand their empire of slavery." Her wings trembled as she continued, "But today, with you, I wanted to. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. Because I trusted you." Marcus reached up slowly, telegraphing his movement, and brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "You are the bravest person I've ever met," he said. "And I know that's hard to believe after everything they did to you. But you are." The ship's systems beeped softly, drawing their attention. The main view screen showed a small planet coming into view, a gorgeous blue-green world circling a distant sun. "I know this place," Nova said, her wings spreading wide as she read the spatial currents. "I came here once, before everything. It's uninhabited but safe. We could land, make repairs." Marcus nodded, but didn't move to the controls immediately. Instead, he looked at Nova with a question in his eyes. "We don't have to go straight to Haven, you know. We could take time, let you recover, figure out what you want." Nova's patterns pulsed with surprise. "You'd do that? Just wait?" "I'd do anything to help you heal," Marcus said simply. "You've had every choice taken from you for so long. I want you to have time to remember who you are, what you want." Nova's wings moved without conscious thought, one wrapping around Marcus's shoulders while the other stretched toward the stars. Her patterns shifted again, showing colors she had almost forgotten existed: hope, trust, and something warmer, something growing stronger with each passing moment. "Thank you," she whispered, then corrected herself. "No, you said I shouldn't thank you for being treated like a person. So instead, I choose this. I choose to stay, to heal, to..." She hesitated, then finished softly, "to see where this journey leads." Marcus's smile was brighter than any star Nova could sense. Together, they turned to the controls, guiding the Morning Star toward their temporary sanctuary, while behind them, their shadows merged on the cockpit wall, human and stellar wing, no longer alone. 3 weeks had passed on the unnamed planet, and Nova felt stronger with each passing day. The world's twin moons cast a silvery light over the clearing where the morning star rested, its hull slowly being restored to its former glory. Nova sat on a fallen log near the ship, her wings spread wide to catch the evening breeze, watching Marcus work on the engine repairs. "Hand me that plasma torch," he called from beneath an open panel. Nova lifted it with her wing, a trick she'd been practicing, and passed it to him with a grace that would have been impossible weeks ago. "Show off," Marcus chuckled, but his eyes shone with pride when he looked at her. He'd been endlessly supportive of her recovery, encouraging every small victory in regaining her strength and abilities. "The stars are different here," Nova said, her patterns rippling with contentment as she gazed upward. "Clearer, somehow. Or maybe I'm just seeing them through new eyes." Marcus emerged from under the panel, wiping his hands on a cloth. "How so?" "Before the Empire, I saw space as just space. Something to navigate. During slavery, it became a prison." She paused, her wings glowing softly. "But now, looking up there, I see possibility. Freedom. A future." Marcus sat beside her on the log, careful not to crowd her but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Over the past weeks, they'd grown comfortable with each other's presence, learning each other's boundaries and respecting them. "Speaking of the future," he said carefully, "the repairs are almost complete. We could leave for Haven within 2 days, if you're ready." Nova's patterns flickered with mixed emotions. "I've been thinking about that. About Haven, about the other freed stellar wings." She turned to face him fully. Would you tell me more about Earth? You've mentioned it before, but never in detail." Marcus looked surprised but pleased. "Earth? Well, it's beautiful, though I'm biased. We have oceans that stretch beyond the horizon, mountains that touch the clouds, and forests that have stood for thousands of years. But more than that, we have hope. Even with the Empire pressing at our borders, we keep fighting, keep believing in freedom. For everyone," Nova added softly. "Not just humans." "For everyone," Marcus agreed. "That's why we run rescue missions, why we built Haven. Because we remember our own history of slavery, of oppression. We won't let it happen to others, not while we can fight." Nova's wings moved forward, one gently brushing Marcus's shoulder. I think I'd like to see Earth. Before Haven." Her patterns swirled with nervous energy. "Not just to visit, but to help. My people's abilities, they could aid your resistance. I want to fight back, to stop the Empire from doing to others what they did to me." Marcus's breath caught. "Nova, you don't owe us anything. You've been through so much already." "This isn't about owing," she said firmly. "It's about choosing. You gave me back my choice, Marcus. And I choose to fight. I choose to stand with those who risk everything to free others." Her patterns shifted to deep gold, determination, strength, conviction. She hesitated for a moment, then added more softly, "And I choose to stand with you. If you want that." Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently took her hand. "I want that more than anything," he whispered. "But I need you to be sure. The resistance isn't an easy life. It's dangerous, Anne." Nova silenced him by wrapping her wings around them both, creating a private universe of softly glowing light. "I've never been more sure of anything," she said. "You freed my body from chains, but more than that, you showed me how to free my heart. Let me use that freedom to help others find theirs." The twin moons cast their light over the clearing as Marcus drew her closer, their foreheads touching in a gesture of complete trust. Above them, the stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with Nova's patterns, as if celebrating a choice made in perfect freedom. Earth's blue sphere filled the morning star's view screen, more beautiful than any of Nova's dreams. Her wings glowed with excitement as they descended through the atmosphere, Marcus skillfully guiding them toward the hidden resistance base in what he called the Rocky Mountains. "Nervous?" Marcus asked, glancing at her with a warm smile. "A little," Nova admitted. "But a good nervous. Like standing on the edge of something wonderful." Her patterns shimmered with anticipation. The ship passed through a layer of holographic camouflage, revealing a vast complex nestled within the mountains. Ships of various designs filled the landing areas, some human, some clearly from other species that had joined the resistance. As they touched down, Nova saw something that made her patterns flare with shock. "Marcus, look!" Among the gathered crowd waiting to greet them were several pairs of glowing wings, stellar wings, free and strong, their patterns showing joy and welcome. Marcus powered down the ship and turned to her fully. "I should have told you sooner. While we were making repairs, I sent a message ahead. Some of the freed stellar wings from Haven chose to join the resistance. They've been eager to meet you." Nova's eyes filled with tears. "You planned this?" "I hoped," he corrected gently. "But the choice was always yours. It still is. If you want to go to Haven instead." Nova silenced him with a kiss, her wings wrapping around them both in a cocoon of starlight. When she pulled back, her patterns were showing colors of pure joy. "My choice is here. With the resistance, with our people, with you." They descended the ship's ramp together, hand in hand. The small group of stellar wings came forward first, their patterns greeting her in the ancient way of their people. Nova responded instinctively, her own patterns joining the symphony of light and emotion. "Welcome, sister," said one of them, an older female whose patterns spoke of wisdom and strength. "I am River, and we have heard of your courage. Both in resisting the Empire, and in choosing to fight." Nova gripped Marcus's hand tighter. "I'm not sure I deserve to be called courageous. I just followed my heart." "That is courage," River said firmly. "To trust again after such pain, to choose love and hope over fear, that is the greatest courage of all." A human woman stepped forward from the crowd, her uniform marking her as a resistance leader. "Nova," she said warmly, "Marcus has told us of your skills, your strength, and your desire to help our cause. We would be honored to have you join us." Nova looked around at the gathered faces, humans, stellar wings, and other species she didn't even recognize, all united in the fight for freedom. Her gaze returned to Marcus, who watched her with eyes full of love and pride. "The Empire thought they could break us," Nova said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "They thought they could turn our gifts into chains, our spirits into weapons for their use. But they were wrong." Her wings spread wide, patterns blazing with determination. "They didn't break me. They didn't break any of us. And together, we will break their chains instead." A cheer went up from the crowd. Marcus pulled her close, and Nova felt his heart beating in time with the pulse of her patterns. She had come so far from that cage in the slave market, not just in distance, but in healing, in strength, in love. "Ready to begin?" Marcus whispered. Nova's wings wrapped around him as she smiled. "I already have. My new life began the moment you saw me as a person, not property. When you gave me the freedom to choose." Her patterns swirled with love, hope, and fierce determination. "And I choose this. All of it. Forever." Above them, Earth's sun painted the mountains in gold, and Nova's patterns reflected its light in a dazzling display. She was no longer enslaved, no longer broken. She was free, she was loved, and she was home. In the end, it wasn't just a human who had freed her and given her his heart. Together, they had freed each other's hearts, proving that love could bridge the stars themselves and break any chain that dared stand in its way.